Explained by the Billy Meier Contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Nuclear explosion effects. Effects of nuclear explosions. Ask its explanations. Part 2.
4th February 1953's. For if a life form were to attain great knowledge and wisdom at too early a stage in its own development, then an inevitable and unstoppable catastrophe would be the effect and consequence, as it is threatening at present also on the Earth, because through the unconscionability of the malevolent extraterrestrial intelligences already mentioned several times, these imparted to some Earth's human beings, so-called scientists, a knowledge of which they were not yet able to cope, namely, the knowledge of the secret of the foundation stones of life, the atom, through which the atomic bomb could be created, by revealing this secret. Once in possession of this dangerous weapon of destruction, it was only a short step to its use, and a repetition of the earlier events in Sodom and Gomorrah. On the 6th of August 1945, the first of these deadly weapons was detonated, and 3 days later the second. As a result, the earthly atmosphere was impregnated with clouds of death, which at that time affected the whole of nature, caused climatic changes, and disturbed weather patterns. The effects of these explosions, which will continue to occur again and again, will manifest themselves in many forms in the coming decades, including in human life. Many lives of fauna and flora will mutate, and also the human life form will suffer malignant mutations and cruel diseases. This evil misery has already begun with the explosions and will continue to spread in the times to come. Earthly science is fully aware of this, but the scientists and others in charge make no effort whatsoever to change the consequences of their madness or to protect themselves from new offenses. On the contrary, they will continue to work in the same form of destruction, detonating atomic bombs again for test purposes as well as commercially, thus driving the Earth into even greater danger.
Contact Report 031.
After the explosions of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic radiation spread very quickly and soon covered the whole Earth. The far greater danger, however, was posed by certain elementary radiations released by the explosions, which still pose great puzzles to Earth scientists and which they have not yet mastered because they have not yet grasped their types and forms. In particular, 3 main values of the earthly resistance to life are influenced and damaged by the release of these elementary radiations. This catastrophic process after an atomic explosion on the scale of the Hiroshima bomb lasts for several centuries and influences all life support potencies in a negative form. In the purely atmospheric layers of the Earth, an atomic explosion affects the ozone balance in a quite catastrophic form, primarily through the release of elementary radiation. Through the release of atomic energy, electrical energies of tremendous values are generated by the elementary radiations already mentioned. This happens in a very high frequency range, which is still unknown to earthly science. These energies are not the normal electrical energy that you are familiar with, but an electrical radiation energy that moves in the ultraviolet radiation range. Inevitably, this radiant energy mixes with the oxygen in the air and produces gigantic amounts of the highest quality ozone. If normally only 1 part of ozone is detectable in 500,000 parts of air according to terrestrial conditions, the ozone value increases to 34 values for a short time after an explosion, which corresponds to a value of 28 parts. These dangerous levels then destroy all microorganisms in the wider environment, which are of enormous importance for the preservation of all terrestrial life. Shortly after the explosion, the ozone levels drop again very quickly and flatten out. Certain elemental values, however, penetrate all matter and accumulate there for hundreds of years, destroying over and over again all microorganisms that come into their vicinity. This is the one factor related to ozone.
But what about atomic radiation, which I calculate must have surrounded the Earth at very high altitudes?
Your calculations are probably correct, but it is not actual atomic radiation. As I said, very special elementary radiations as well as particles are produced by the explosion. These are what reach very high altitudes and spread around the globe and affect different layers. In your terms, these layers are named very differently, including one of the layers that is also at risk, which you call the Van Allen belt. This belt consists in particular of electrons and protons captured by the terrestrial magnetic field, which have a vital function for terrestrial life. However, I am not allowed to give more details about this, because from these explanations very many values could be drawn for your scientists for their researches and would give them means in their hands of which they could not yet become powerful. The Van Allen belt is at an average altitude of 1,000 kilometers. The charged particles are in constant motion, following spiral paths from pole to pole.